Hello guys, it is now December 1st, so I will be doing my November wrap-up. I'm going to be using a lot of stuff. So I'm using my computer to film. I have the books, but I also have a lot of books on like Kindle and the books app, so I'm going to be using this to show you like the covers, but then I'm also using my phone because I made notes about each of the books. So we're just gonna go ahead and start. I also have these papers to tell me which books went with Believe-a-thon and which books didn't. I also participated in the Thousand Doors-a-thon. Unfortunately, I don't have that written down anywhere that I have easy access to. So if you want to know which books I read for Thousand Doors-a-thon, just watch my everything vlog, which included the Believe-a-thon and all the books for Believe-a-thon and A Thousand Doors-a-thon, and then a couple books from just my regular TBR. I did finish my TBR, however, if you watch some of my other videos, you'll realize that didn't necessarily work out. So, I'll go ahead and start with the wrap-up. So the first book I read was The Unadoptables, and I'm about to pull that up on my Kindle app real quick. So this is gonna go so well. Okay. So this is, I'm just gonna go back to cover. Come on. There we go. This is The Unadoptables by Hannah Took. I read this. It is about these groups, 5 kids. It's about this group of 5 kids who are orphans, and they're considered unadoptable because they have like this weird quirk about them. Like one of them is kind of morbid and carries around a coffin. One of them, I think has like an extra finger. I forgot what all the quirks were, but they're all really quirky. And so their main, I guess like the main character, like they're all main characters, will be this little girl. Let's see if I can figure out what all their names were. All of their names are Lotta. She's the one with the extra finger. The second one's name is Egbert because of a shawl he has that's kind of a mottled gray. Her name is Finna. I forgot what's weird about her. Sim. One of them's name is Sim. And then the last girl's name is Milou. Milou is our main character. We mostly follow her perspective. Well, it's third person, but it's kind of third person limited into her perspective. And we are following these 5 groups of orphans who run away from this orphanage because the matron is abusive, basically. And so they run away because they have found a clue to where her lost family is. And she is dead set on believing they're alive. And so they run away. I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. I also read it for like the very first prompt, which is in order to gain the key. So to get the key, I read that one. I wish everything would stay unlocked. Okay. The next book I finished was Other Words for Home, which I read on Scribd. It is by Jasmine Warga. And And this is the cover. I listened to this on Scribd. It fulfilled 2 prompts for Believe-a-thon. But this, it filled the prompts for Fingerprints, which was to read a book from like another culture, I believe. And then the Scream, which was to listen to an audiobook or read a book out loud. I gave it 4 stars. It is about this girl and her mom. It's about this one little girl named, oh gosh, what is her name? Jude. And she lives in Syria, but because of some growing tension in Syria, she goes to her and her mother go to live with her uncle in America, specifically Cincinnati. So she goes to live there, and it's her dealing with, I guess, like culture shock, the different cultures, as well as not knowing that much English, as well as just what's going on in Syria as well. So there's all this stuff. I ended up giving 4 stars. It was really good. I enjoyed it. What was the next one? This would go by a lot faster if this would just stay unlocked. The next one was Over the Woodward Wall by A. Deborah Baker. I know what this one is. This one is I'm trying to think of how to describe it. So this one, I'm going to show you the cover. Hold on. Here we go. Over the Woodward Wall by A. Deborah Baker. This one follows these two kids named, one of them is named Avery, and then the other one is named Zib. It's short for Hepzibah. Anyway. And it follows them as they go into they end up climbing this wall on their way to school. And they end up trying to go down the impossible road to get home, or to get to the improbable. No, they go down the improbable road to get to the impossible city to get home. And so that's their story. I gave it 5 stars, although there was something that happened at the end that was a little I guess she set up the end, I believe, to make a sequel, so I gave it 5 stars because I think that's what's gonna happen, but if she never ends up making a sequel, I might lower the rating. I read this for Believe-a-thon 2, I believe, and that was to get helps if I can find it. It's not well organized, I'm sorry guys. Like, I have it semi-organized, but then everything keeps turning off and all that stuff. All that good stuff. Okay, it's the final one. I read it to get The Shadow. Next, the next book that I read was also for Believe-a-thon, I believe. Or maybe I just read it because I wanted to. Well, it's on my TBR, I believe. Oh, so unorganized. This is so unorganized. So unorganized. Okay, I did not read it for Believe-a-thon. I think it was just on my rereads. But it is It was Song for a Whale by Lynn Kelly. This one follows a deaf girl named... What was her name? Iris. Her name was Iris because it follows a deaf girl named Iris, and she learns about this whale in science class who sings at a different hertz level than the other whales, and so it becomes like a really lonely whale. And she finds a way to use music and the hertz to communicate with this whale, and she wants to find it and help it. When I first read it, I thought it was a fantasy. It isn't, but I absolutely love it. I gave it 5 stars the first time around. Upon the reread, I also gave it 5 stars. The next book I read, I actually have in person, so you guys don't have to wait for me to find it. You just have to wait for me to find this. And that is The Accidental Hero by Matt M. And this follows a boy named Jack Blank. This is also a reread, by the way. My Believe-a-thon TBR was a lot of rereads. But this follows Jack, and he's given the last name Blank because he was an orphan, and he's at this orphanage, and he didn't come with a last name. It just says his name's Jack, so he's kind of colloquially known as Jack Blank. And it turns out that he has these magical abilities to control, like, technology. And so he's picked up by, well, he gets attacked by a robo-zombie, and then after he is found, he is taken to the Imagine Nation, so there's space there. So he's taken there, and this robo-zombie comes back to attack him again. So I rated this one 5 stars. It would have been 5 stars when I first read it. Upon the reread, is also 5 stars. So there is that. The next one I read was The Vile Village by Lemony Snicket. It is also in physical. It is also a physical book. I also read it for the Believe-a-thon, and I read it to get the dagger. This is the 7th book in the series, so a brief synopsis of it. We follow Violet, Klaus, and Sunny Baudelaires. They are the Baudelaire orphans. Violet is the oldest. She's really good at like mechanical stuff and inventing things. Klaus is the reader. He remembers basically everything he's read. So he reads a lot of nonfiction, which kudos to him. I prefer fantasy. And then there's Sunny. She's a toddler, a baby, and then kind of becomes a toddler as the series goes on. I think she's getting to the toddler age starting around this one. She likes to bite things, and later on in the series, she kind of gets a, like, knack for cooking as well. So in this series, there's this evil man named Count Olaf who is trying to kidnap the Baudelaires and steal their fortune. And in the Vile Village, he finds them at this village called the Village of the Fowl Devotees. Fowl as in F-O-W-L. There's a murder of crows here. We meet one of my favorite characters from the TV show here. So I didn't particularly care about him in the book series, but the TV show made me adore him. So, or the Netflix series made me adore him. I gave it 5 stars. You probably should not be surprised by that. Okay. Oh, well, I accidentally skipped one. Let me find it in this real quick. Here we go. and find it here. So I have one more Kindle book that I read. Well, not one more. There's several. Here we go. And this one is Here Lies Arthur by Philip Reeve. This is a Arthurian retelling of, I believe, it is a retelling of Thomas Mallory's La Morte d'Arthur. La Morte d'Arthur. It adds this character. I don't remember much about this one, to be honest. I didn't particularly enjoy it that much. But it follows this character named Gwenna. She's forced to run when her village is attacked and burned to the ground. She's discovered in the woods. Mairdrin the Bard found her, though, and he agrees to protect her if she's agreed to be bound in service to him. He serves the young, rough, and powerful Arthur, so it kind of follows that. I didn't particularly enjoy it that much because the basis of it was not my favorite. But it's okay. I ended up giving it 3 stars. It was an alright book. There's not much more to say about it. Okay, the next book I read is The Forest of Silence, which is the first book in the Altora's Quest series. I have this one on my iBooks. If I can find it. There we go. I just wanted to show the cover. Oh well, it's not gonna let me. So this one right here is the one I'm talking about. This is the cover. It is by Emily Rhoda. So the Altora's Quest is about this boy, a grown man, and a young girl, and they all go on a quest to rebuild the Belt of Deltora, which is supposed to help defeat this monster, but the only people who can control it are royalty, and so the boy is not royalty, but he has to rebuild the belt to give to the prince who was hidden away when the monster took over. I read this for Believe-a-thon as well. I read it for the prompt. If I can find it. Here we go. I read it for 2 prompts, I believe. Yes, I read it for the backpack and the footprints. And I gave it 5 stars. It was good. I enjoyed the TV show too, so like I kind of expected to enjoy it. It's not that much different than the TV show. So I know for some reason the TV show is only available in Asia unless you watch it from like maybe not that legitimate means. So there's that. The next book I read is The Empty Grave by Jonathan Stroud. This is the 5th and final book in the Lockwood & Co. series. I read this one for Believe-a-thon as well. It is also a reread. Hold on, I'm gonna go through this and take out the ones that I've already talked about just to make my life a little bit easier. Talk about that one. Talk about that one. Talk about that one. Talk about that one. Talk about these 2. About to talk about this one. That one. Talk about that one. Okay. So I read The Empty Grave for Spilled Ink and Torn Page. Lockwood & Co. follows these 3 young agents called Lucy, Kara, Carlisle, our narrator, Anthony Lockwood and George Cuppins, and they have these psychic abilities that helps them hunt ghosts. I gave this 5 stars. Reread. Shouldn't be that much of a surprise that I rated it so highly. I also read Avatar: The Last Airbender: The Search Part 3. Now, this might be a little bit of a spoiler for the TV series if you haven't seen it, but The Search follows Zuko and the Avatar gang as they go looking for Zuko's mother. And I gave it 5 stars. It was pretty solid end to the series. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed where it went. I love the art style. It was such a sweet story, and it's such a sweet ending to the series. The next one I read... Come on. Come on. Was... Here we go. I'm sorry, guys. This is not very organized. There we go. The next one I read was The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. I read this one for Believe-a-thon as well. And I read it to get The Crown. And it follows this witch or this town who takes the youngest baby and sacrifices it to the witch. Now, the witch is not mean, and so she just takes these babies, feeds them starlight, and then gives them over to like this town on the other side of the forest. Except one time she accidentally feeds a baby moonlight, and it kind of devolves from there. And it follows the girl who was given moonlight. I gave it 5 stars. Shouldn't be that much of a surprise. I loved it. It was really sweet, really cute. And that's just what I rated it. The next book I read, I believe I read this one for the, what's it called? 1,000 Dwarfs is on. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I did. And it's Theirs for the Night by Katie Robert. Definitely a completely different spin from where I was originally taking, or different spin. Different side of the story. This follows a girl, and she's kind of down on her luck, but she goes to celebrate her birthday. I believe the 21st birthday. Might not have been. I'm pretty sure it's her 21st birthday. And she ends up going home with these 2 men, and they have a nice, fun time. It's a great story. I gave it 5 stars. There's it's like a prequel to this longer book. I have not read that book yet, but I really want to, but I keep putting it off because I'm scared I'm not going to like it as much. The next book I read for Believe-a-thon as well, so this is a middle grade. And it is The Captive's Kingdom by Jennifer A. Nielsen. It is... Okay, so I can't really tell you what this one's about because it follows the Inheritance Cycle trilogy. I believe it's just called The Inheritance Cycle. I thought it was originally a trilogy, not The Inheritance Cycle. Oh gosh. What is... The Ascendants series. I thought it was just the Ascendants trilogy, which was The False Prince. The False Prince The Runaway King and the Shadow Throne. And I can't really explain to you what this one is without spoiling the first one. But it's book 4 in the series. This has 4 or 4. She might be writing more, hopefully, because it kind of ends with the possibility of there being a second one, but I kind of also like where it ended. I read this for Believe-a-thon, and I read it to get the hand mirror. That should be all of the prompts, I believe. If not, oh well. No, it should have been all of them, because there's only one more. Or 2 more middle grades, but I know I didn't read them for Believe-a-thon. And I gave it 5 stars. Yeah, I did. I loved it. It was good. I definitely loved. There's like a specific kind of reunion in there that I absolutely adored. So that was great. I believe. No, that's not the last one I read on my Kindle. I read quite a few on my Kindle. The next one I read is Erased 3 by Kei Senbei. This is on Kindle because I thought I ordered it, but apparently I only ordered 4 and 5, so I bought it on Kindle so I can eventually order the 3rd one, and I enjoyed it. 5 stars. The Erased series is about this man, and he has the ability that he will, if something bad happens, he'll like travel back in time to right before the event happens. But then his mom gets murdered, and so he begs to be allowed to go back in time to fix it. But instead of being traveled back in time to right before her murder, he actually travels back to several years in the past when these girls had started to go missing. And so there's at least 5 books out in the series. I don't know if that's only 5 books, but I know there's at least 5 in the English translations. So there's that. The next book I read is Celtic Myths and Tales, the Epic Tales version. I gave it 3 stars. I loved some of them, didn't love others. It was, just a short story collection. The next 2 I read are part of the same series, and what ended up happening is I thought I read the 3rd one in the series, and so I started the 4th one, but then I realized I hadn't read the 3rd one in the series. It's a series I have on the... okay. I'm wrong. It's 4 and 5, not 3 and 4. So I thought I read the 4th one, and so I was reading the 5th one, but I hadn't read the 4th one. So I started reading the 5th one and had to go back and read the 4th one, and those were... Well, the 5th one is The Predator by K.A. Applegate, and then the next one was, or the 4th book is The Message by K.A. Applegate. So it's these 2 down here. And these are about some aliens that come over and they take over, but this other set of aliens gives these kids the ability to shift into animals after they acquire the DNA of these animals. I believe I read one of these for Believe-a-thon, but I can't remember which one. And I gave both of them 4 stars. They were good. Remind me of Power Rangers. There's another series that reminds me of Power Rangers, and I like it. The next book I read was 1606, William Shakespeare and the Year of Lear. This is by James Shapiro. It basically just shows what was going on in the world during 1606 and kind of maybe what led to his writing of the King Lear. So I gave it 4 stars. It was interesting. Not. I don't really rate nonfiction all that high, so there's that. The next book I read was Escape from Aurora. This is the 2nd book in the Frostite series by Jamie Littler. This one follows a boy named Ash, and he has this ability to song weave, which is basically he sings and he can connect to like the world weave, and he can communicate with the what are they called? They have different names, but in general, they're called Leviathans. And so he's considered dangerous for this, and so he gets kicked out of his tribe and is joined the crew of the Frostheart with his guardian Tobias. And he is a Yeti. Tobu, not Tobias. I also gave this 5 stars. I absolutely love the series. I can't wait for the next one to come out. And based on his Instagram, I believe it's he's working on his cover, so I'm hoping that means it comes out soon. The next one I read is also on my Kindle. I read a lot of Kindle books. If you can't tell, it's also another manga that I read because I saw the anime. And this one is called The Betrayal Knows My Name by Hatoru Aotagiri. And it's about this character named Yuki, and he has this ability to heal people by taking on their pain. And there are this group called the Zouts who are fighting the Duras, which are basically demons. And so he kind of joins them. And I gave it 5 stars. And I'm missing a book because I can't read my own notes, apparently. So. Spoiler alert, you know what it is. The next one I finished is Aurora Rising by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is a series about this squad from the Aurora Academy. So this kind of takes place in the future, and it's on a space. In space, they're like fighter pilots, and there are squads with like a whole bunch of people. So you have like a diplomat, like a flyer, someone who's good with technology, someone who's good medic, and then like the leader, stuff like that. And Tyler is like the best. He's a star pupil. He's supposed to get like the first 4 picks, but he ends up for some reason being late, and so he can't. So like he ends up late to his graduation, so he kind of gets stuck with people who weren't chosen. And except one of them kind of like, if you choose me, I'm going to beat you up because I want to work with Tyler, and we know he would have chosen me, blah, 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 blah. And then there's also a girl named Aurora, and she is out of time, or like she's from the past, kind of got frozen in sleep for like 200 years, I believe. And so she's like now in like the modern time for the book, and so she's like stuck out of time, and she's super confused, and everything's going wrong in her life basically. And so they're trying to protect her, but they're kind of hesitant about it. So it's really good. I gave it 5 stars. No, I didn't. I gave it 4. I think I gave it 4 because at first I wasn't loving it, but now I do. And so, like, I think now my rating for it's 5 stars. But when I first rated it was 4. So we'll see. If I rate the second one 5 stars, I might bump this one back up. Or bump that one up to 5. We'll see. The next book I finished is The Last House Guest by Megan Miranda, and I can't tell you what happened in this. I know it's like this party, a girl ends up dying in this town, and it's like a vacation kind of town. And I think they're trying to figure out who killed her like years later, and I didn't like it. I gave it 2 stars. I can't tell you anything about it. So, it's also being unhauled, so there's that. The next book I finished was Sea Spell by Jennifer Donnelly. This is the final book in the Waterfire saga. This is the other series that reminds me of Power Rangers. Love it so much. I gave this one 4 stars. This one was also 4 stars. There was just a couple things that, like, it wasn't the best. It's not my favorite. But I did enjoy it. I definitely liked it more than the first book. The first book I gave 3 stars, and the only reason I continued on with this series was because it gave me such Power Rangers vibes. So, there's that. I'm thinking about doing an unhaul video. You guys should tell me if I should. Because there's a middle grade series that I read the first and second book of, and I love the first one. The second one was alright. And I haven't finished the third, and I've had it for years. So you guys should tell me. I might do an unhaul video, or maybe one of those if I haven't read this by the end of 2021, I'll unhaul. So the next book I finished is Illuminate by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. Yes, I started both these series at the same time, basically. It's okay. It's alright. I gave this one, okay, so this one follows these 2 kids named Katie and, Ezra, there we go. And they broke up, and then, like, this alien invasion happens, and so they both escape, but they escape on separate ships, and they're trying to figure out what is going on, because they're being lied to, and they're concerned, and a lot of stuff happens. For this portion of the book, I, like, stopped, so it was really good. I enjoyed it. 5 stars. The Girl Beneath the Sea by Andrew Mayne is the next book I finished. And this one is about a girl named Sloane McPherson, and she comes from a criminal kind of family, but she's a police diver trying to prove that, you know, they're not all pirates and drug dealers. They can be something else. And then she ends up finding so she's a police diver, so she gets a badge, but, like, she's not actually a police officer, and they just found it easier to, like, put her on the payroll than to, like, hire her for each individual, like, time they need her to dive, and they live in Florida, so they kind of need her to dive often. But she's doing, like, an extra credit assignment for one of her college classes, one of her anthropology college classes she's taking. And she ends up finding a body, and so she kind of becomes a suspect. And there is, this person who's trying to kill her, like, there's an assassin trying to kill her, and she's a suspect, and she doesn't really know how to trust, so she has to solve this as well. And there's also, she also has to work with this guy who put her uncle in prison, and so her family kind of doesn't like him, but it's whatever. I gave it 5 stars. I enjoyed it. Alright. The next book I finished on Audible, so unfortunately I can't show you the cover, but it's called Christmas Wishes and Mistletoe Kisses. Who is it by? Audible. I forgot who it's by, I'm sorry. I want to say Katie Roberts, but I'm pretty sure I'm wrong. Is it Jenny Hale? I don't think it's Jenny Hale. It is by Oh, it is Jenny Howe. And it follows this girl who is a nurse. She is kind of specially hired by this millionaire to take care of his sick grandmother. But then the grandmother recommends to him for her to decorate his house, and he's only getting it decorated because he has family coming in, and he doesn't want them to worry about him because it's empty. So he hires her to decorate it because he doesn't really care what it looks like, and they end up falling in love. And it's like a really hallmarky kind of Christmas movie, but in book form, and I absolutely love it. So if you're going into it for like that kind of romance, you're gonna get it. But if you're trying to get like this really in-depth kind of romance, you're really not gonna get it. I enjoyed it. It was 5 stars. The next book I finished is A Christmas Carol, The Chimes, and The Cricket on the Hearth by Charles Dickens. This is rated 4 stars, so, and here's why. A Christmas Carol, I gave 5 stars. The Chimes, I gave 3 stars. And The Cricket on the Hearth, I gave 4. So this conglomeration kind of just ended up in 4 stars. It's really good. I didn't really like The Chimes. I don't recommend. A Christmas Carol, I definitely recommend the movie and the book. And The Cricket on the Hearth was good, but not quite as good as The Christmas Carol. He apparently wrote 6. This is bind up of like 3 of his stories he wrote for Christmas, but there's apparently 3 more. So there's that. The next one I finished. So the next 2 are on Kindle. So you'll have to give me a minute to find them. Okay, I can't pronounce this author's name to save my life, so I apologize. But this is Fresh Water by this person. It follows a Nigerian girl who was born with, I can't pronounce what the spirits are called, but she's born with like these spirits in her, and she's considered mad because of these spirits. But I think she's actually mad. Like, I think even the spirits agree she's mad because they're coming from like the spirit world, and the gate's supposed to close, but then it doesn't. And she moves to America, and she deals with this madness and all of that. I gave it 4 stars. It's really weird. There are definitely some trigger warnings. Like, there should be trigger warnings for rape, a lot of self-harm, suicide thoughts and actions, and all of that. So, it didn't trigger me personally, but some people it might. Especially the self-harm. The self-harm gets a little bit graphic. The suicide can be a little bit graphic. The rape is not that graphic. Although you can also say this is kind of dubcon, because whenever she's having sex throughout the entire book, for the most part, there's a couple of instances where she's there, but for most of the book, she's not actually present, and it's one of the spirits that takes over her body and kind of sends the girl somewhere else. So you might call it dubcon as well. I did give it 4 stars. It was an enjoyable read. It was weird. I'm not sure I understood it, but it was there. And it was a good book overall. The next one is a book I got on Kindle Unlimited, which I'm kind of glad this is a Kindle Unlimited. But it's Hey God, Hey John, What Happens When God Writes Back by John Rodell. So this is basically a collection of his Facebook posts with a few other things that I don't think he posted on Facebook, where he doesn't like God doesn't actually write back, but in his mind he writes out like what he is asking God and what he feels God's response is, or what he wants God to respond to. And let's see if I can get through to some of these posts. But he doesn't claim to be like quoting God, although they do. Like, here we go. Even though it's backwards, this is like one of them. Some of them are really short, some of them are pages long, so they're really interesting. I gave it 5 stars. I feel like everyone should read it at least a little bit. However, not necessarily, like, you're not necessarily going to relate to all the posts. For example, I mentioned this in my vlog that I haven't posted yet because it's like the first, day of December. But, that, like, he has a son who's autistic, and there are some struggles that he writes about with that. Well, I don't have a kid. Excuse me. I don't have a kid at all, let alone an autistic child. So, like, I can't relate to his struggles with parenthood or struggling to parent an autistic child and how the world views them. Like, I can't relate to that struggle. But there are people out there who can. And so I think everyone, at least if you believe in God, might get something out of this book. So I gave it 5 stars for the parts of it that I could relate to, and the parts I couldn't were still pretty interesting too. And he's pretty funny as well. The final book. This is such an unpopular opinion, but the final book I read was There There by Tommy Orange, and the only reason I completed it was because I have to write an essay on it for class. This is a 1-star read. If I didn't have to read this for class, I would have DNF'd it and gave it 0 stars. I don't like this book. This follows 12 Native American characters as they're dealing with their struggles with alcohol and their identity. Some of them care more about it than others. Some don't care at all. They all have struggles. I think one of the most interesting things that I remember from the story is one of them is looking for his dad, and he ends up finding him on Facebook. This story just gave me such the jungle vibes by Upton St. Clair, and I hated the jungle. And this one, it had some hope, but not enough for it to make up for all the bad stuff that happens. There are certain things that I dislike about this as well that I'm not going to talk about. There are certain ways that they write about things I don't like. I didn't particularly like the intro either, the prologue, because while it's very interesting to look at the history, I feel like it's kind of also very nitpicky which parts of history it talks about. And I, in general, did not like this. I would not have finished it if it wasn't for class. So, this will be unhauled as soon as I finish with this essay. That's what, honestly, for this class, we had to read like 6 novels, and I absolutely hated all of them. So, all of them are going to be unhauled after this semester is over. So that is my reading month. I managed to read. This doesn't include the books I DNF'd because, unfortunately, I stopped keeping track of my DNFs just because it got really annoying when I was like, did you read this in 2020? I was like, well, technically I didn't read it, so. I managed to read 30 books in November, so that's why this is a 50-minute long video. So, I managed to read 30 books, and, let's see. I'm gonna average up the, what's it called? My, what is it called? Oh, the average rating for the month. So I actually had a relatively good month with a lot of 5 stars. Most of those being, what are they called? Most of those being rereads, but a couple of them were new. Like The Unadoptables was new. Oh, I'm losing track. Hold on, I'll be right back. So the average rating for the whole month was a 4.3. 3 repeating. So, relatively good month. That's it for my November wrap up. I now have to go clean all this up and then go work on that essay that I've been procrastinating that's due in a little over 5 hours. Have a nice holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's, Happy Hanukkah. I don't know any other holidays that take place during December, but happy whatever holidays you celebrate.